Today we're going to build a toolbox. Let's start by looking at the tools we're going to need, and then we'll look at the materials. We're going to need a tape measure. We're going to need a square, either a combination square or maybe a speed square. You're going to need a pencil or a pen. You'll need a saw. Any saw will work. If you have a circular saw or a jigsaw, you could use that. And you'll need a drill driver, something you can use to drill some pilot holes and put in some screws. To hold your materials down, you should have a couple of clamps. Now for the materials. For today's project, I decided to use these. These are cedar fence boards. Now the great thing about fence planks like this is that they grow in the wild all over the place. For this project, you're going to need 3 of them. You're going to need at least one of these. This is a 3-foot piece of 2x2. It's actually 1.5 by 1.5, but it's a 2x2. Some wood glue. Any wood glue is fine. And we'll need some screws. Because these planks are only 5/8 inch, I tried to find the shortest screws I could. The shortest ones I had over there were these 1 1/4 inch, which are going to just barely be short enough. We're also going to need a couple of longer screws, so I have some 2.5 inch screws that are left over from building my deck. I'm going to get everything ready, and then I'm going to start a timer. I want to see how long it actually takes me to finish building this. I think I could do this in about an hour. I might be a little too optimistic, given that I'm going to have to cut all these pieces by hand. When you go to the warped board store and you're picking out pieces of wood, dig through all of the wood and find the nicer looking pieces. You know, you don't have to take the one on the top. I picked some boards here that looked a little nicer. I need 2 pieces that are 24 inches long. I need 2 pieces that are 25 and
12 seconds later.
25 1/4 inches long. And I need 4 pieces that are 14 inches long. And we should be able to just, those tricks only work if you actually cut things up and then edit them. And I thought about doing that, coming back and pretending like I cut them up, but that would be cheating. This is not the easiest position to saw anything, but I'm doing it this way so that you guys can see. When I was a kid, I spent a lot of time working with my grandpa, and we cut a lot of stuff by hand, or he cut a lot of stuff by hand. So I learned a lot of cool tricks, mostly things like this. Most of the saws that I have are saws that I have rescued, so they're a bit older. I've cleaned the rust off of them, refinished a lot of the handles. They're not terribly sharp. I need to learn to sharpen saws, so it doesn't cut super well. That saw is way sharper. I've got 4 14-inch long pieces, got 2 24s and 2 25 1/4. We have a few more cuts to make. I have a couple more pieces to cut. These 14-inch pieces, these are going to be the ends of the toolbox. They're going to go together like this. The 2 24-inch pieces will go like this to be the bottom of the toolbox. These 25 1/4 inch pieces are going to go on the sides like this to be the sides. These are all separate boards. We need them to be held together. So we need to put something across here to hold these together. So I'm going to cut an 11-inch piece of wood off of here, and then I'm going to cut it in half down the middle. It should be 2 3/4, I think. Is that? No, that's not 2 3/4. I need this to be 11 inches long. This is a lot easier if you can clamp this vertically in a clamp like this, so you can cut, which I can't do on this table. So it's a little hard to keep on track when the table's going everywhere, and you know, I have a lot of other excuses, but they're kind of, it wandered off there towards the end. I got off by maybe like a 16th, maybe more like an 1/8. Okay, fine, it's like a quarter. It's fine, these will work. The next step, I'm going to take my 4 pieces that are going to be the 2 ends here. So first I'm going to decide which side is going to be the bottom, and also which is going to be the inside and the outside. You know, because sometimes the wood has a prettier side and an uglier side, like this is going to be the inside of that one. These two kind of match. I'm going to draw an arrow on each one, so that way I know this side goes down. I'm going to measure 3 inches from the bottom of each one and make a line. And then I'm going to make a mark on the outside this edge. I'm going to measure 9.5 inches from my bottom edge, and I'm going to make a mark on the side right here. Take my combination square or the speed square, you could use either, and I'm going to use the 45-degree angle here. And on each one of these, I'm going to draw a line from my 9.5 inch mark to the top of the board. So now the boards should look like this. I marked them at 3 inches. I'm not cutting that off, but I marked it. I have an arrow here on the inside corner pointing down, so I know that this piece goes like this. And at the top, I have a 45-degree line from my 9.5 inch mark going up there, and this is going to get cut off. So I have 4 more cuts to do. I think all of our stuff is cut. Now it's time to put these together. Assembly on this should be relatively simple. Take one end, so 2 pieces, stick them together. They're going to go like that. This piece is going to go on here. I'm going to take the straight edge of the board. I'm going to line it up with my 3-inch marks that I have on here. I'm going to put some glue on there. The glue is just sort of an extra security there. And then I'm going to put some screws in. Now these screws are 1.25 inches, which is exactly how thick these boards are. So when I put the screws in, I'm just going to put them in until the heads are just down to the surface of the wood. These triangles that I cut off, I'm going to put one of these triangles right at the top. It's going to stick up off the top. That's okay. We'll trim that off after. Just going to stick it on there right where these sides line up. I'm only going to put like 2 screws in this out on the edges because this handle is going to attach in the middle there. That's one end. We'll come back and trim that off after we get these put together. So let's grab the other one. Got the 2 ends put together. I'm just going to take the saw and cut these triangle tops off. There's our 2 ends. Let's get the 2 24s. Just going to screw these down. Probably will drill a couple of pilot holes in here. Now, pilot holes don't have to be huge. Mostly it's just so I don't split this board out on top. That was cool. That makes this a lot more solid to get the rest of these drilled and get the rest of the screws in. There you go, there's the bottom. Now I just put on these sides. They will go on just like that. And then I can put screws in all along here and all along this bottom edge. There's some glue on here because I don't know why. last thing to do is to add the handle. That means I need to cut my handle piece down. And it should be, if the math does all the math that the math should do, it should be 24 minus 1 1/4 inch. So it should be 22 3/4 inches. Cut this off here. And that should fit right in there. Now I'm going to put some long screws. I have some 3-inch screws or 2.5-inch screws. I'm going to put those through the end. This little triangle piece split in half. Should have drilled it. The other one worked too well. Box is done. Right now, 1 hour and 34 minutes. And that includes making all of the cuts, putting it all together, time that I spent, talking to myself. Let's take a look at what we made here. It's nothing incredible, but this is something that can be done with very few tools in a short amount of time with not a lot of materials. I think they were less than $4 a piece. So 3 of those, 12 bucks. This was like $3 or something. We'll say another $4. $16 worth of materials. You could get all of the materials for this, including glue and screws, for $25 or less. If you were recycling materials, old fencing or something, you could get the materials for free. Instead of getting like construction screws, short construction screws, you could use sheetrock screws on this. Everyone will tell you don't use sheetrock screws when you're putting together woodworking projects, but that's because sheetrock screws are not as strong. They tend to snap much more easily. This is just a really simple toolbox. If you drill pilot holes, you shouldn't snap any screws, and sheetrock screws should be easy for this, and you can just take those right out of your walls, and then they would be free. You guys let me know what you think of this toolbox. If you end up building a toolbox like this was my really simple, really fast one, but I would love to see what sort of toolbox you come up with. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate you all, and I'll see you next time. These will go in here just